It all started with a joke. Or, at least, that's what the world initially thought. Imagine sitting in a packed studio audience, the cameras rolling, and a familiar voice cutting through the chatter with a line so sharp, so unexpectedly hilarious, that it silences everyone for a heartbeat. Then laughter erupts, part disbelief, part amusement, part shock. That voice belonged to Mike Tindall, the former rugby star turned royal family insider, whose blunt charm and dry humor had already earned him a reputation as someone who didn't exactly mince words. But what he said about Meghan Markle that day on live television wasn't just funny. It was historic, audacious, and instantly viral. He called her the Duchess of Yacht, and the nation collectively blinked, unsure whether to laugh, gasp, or reach for their phones to capture the moment. Pause for a second and think about this. When was the last time someone openly poked fun at a member of the British royal family on live TV, and the reaction was anywhere near this explosive? The answer is probably never in recent memory. The palace is known for its meticulous decorum, carefully scripted public appearances, and tightly controlled image management. Yet here was Mike Tindall, standing casually in front of millions, cracking a line that sent shockwaves across social media, traditional media outlets, and coffee tables from London to New York. What was even more intriguing wasn't just the joke itself, but the timing, the delivery, and the context. It was the perfect storm of celebrity, royalty, humor, and public fascination. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. You might be asking yourself, why does this matter now? Why should anyone care about a single quip delivered in a television studio? Well, this wasn't just a quip. It was a cultural flashpoint. In the past few years, Meghan Markle has been one of the most scrutinized figures in the world. From her relationship with Prince Harry to her departure from royal duties, the infamous Oprah interview, and her ongoing media battles, she has been a figure of intrigue, controversy, admiration, and, for some, outright disdain. Every public move she makes is analyzed, debated, and amplified across countless platforms. And then comes Mike Tindall, whose humor has always skirted the edge of decorum, delivering a line that, on the surface, seems playful, but underneath, cuts straight to the heart of the public's fascination and criticism of Meghan. To understand the full impact, we have to step back and examine both the players involved and the environment in which this event occurred. Mike Tindall is no stranger to the spotlight. As a celebrated rugby player for England, his exploits on the field earned him fame and respect. But off the field, his life intertwined with royalty when he married Zara Phillips, Queen Elizabeth II's granddaughter. That connection gave him a unique vantage point. He's part of the royal family, yet not constrained by the same expectations of protocol and formality that dictate every public movement of a prince or duchess. This gives him a sort of insider-outsider status, where his humor can pierce the formal armor of the monarchy in ways that few others could attempt. And when he chooses to speak, people listen, not just because he's a royal in-law, but because he represents a voice that is candid, unfiltered, and, in moments like this, devastatingly precise. Meghan Markle, on the other hand, has had a much more complicated trajectory. Born an American actress, she entered the royal family with a narrative that combined glamour, celebrity, and a modern progressive image. From the outset, her presence disrupted traditional expectations. She navigated the intense scrutiny of the press, the sometimes unforgiving public eye, and the internal pressures of royal life. Every smile, every outfit, every statement was dissected for meaning, intent, and implication. Over time, the scrutiny intensified, particularly after the couple stepped back from royal duties. Meghan became both a symbol of a new era and a lightning rod for controversy. In this climate, a single line from a family insider like Tindall could resonate far beyond the studio audience, rippling across the globe in a matter of hours. Now, let's zoom in on the moment itself. The atmosphere in the studio was electric. The audience expected banter, humor, and perhaps a few harmless jabs. But no one expected a remark that would simultaneously entertain, provoke deep discussion about the boundaries of royal satire. Mike leaned into the microphone with a confident grin and, in a perfectly timed delivery, referred to Meghan as the Duchess of Yacht. It was the kind of line that seemed almost offhand, yet in its simplicity, It captured the imagination of everyone watching. What did he mean? Was it a playful jab at Meghan's high-profile lifestyle? A comment on perceived extravagance? Or was there a deeper, subtler critique woven into those words? The ambiguity itself added to the allure, leaving viewers questioning, laughing, and debating all at once. Social media, as you can imagine, erupted within minutes. Clips of the moment were shared across platforms, with captions ranging from, "Did he really just say that?" to "Mike Tindall nails it." Memes proliferated, Twitter debates flared, and opinion columns were drafted, edited, and published, all before the broadcast had even concluded. It's a testament to how a single moment, delivered with precision, can ignite global attention. And yet, even as the public laughed, gawked, or shook their heads, those closest to the royal family were processing the moment differently. What did this say about family dynamics, loyalty, and the perception of Meghan within her new extended family? How did this casual quip play into the broader narrative that has surrounded her for years? These are the questions that make this story not just funny, but deeply compelling. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Mike Tindall didn't merely aim for shock value. His choice of words was deliberate, his timing meticulous. Every public figure understands the weight of a live television appearance, especially when the stakes involve royalty and media attention. This wasn't a slip of the tongue or an off-the-cuff remark. It was a carefully delivered line that leveraged Tindall's insider knowledge, his natural humor, and the public's pre-existing fascination with Meghan Markle. The genius of the joke is that it functions on multiple levels, as pure humor, as social commentary, and as a catalyst for ongoing discussion. It's the kind of moment that television producers dream of, where the audience is fully engaged, commentary explodes, and the story takes on a life of its own. As we move deeper into this story, we'll explore not just the joke itself, but the layers beneath it. We'll examine Tindall's history of humor, Meghan's public and private persona, and the immediate reactions from the audience, the royal family, and the media. We'll unpack the cultural context that made a simple quip resonate so powerfully and analyze how this single moment fits into the broader narrative of modern monarchy, celebrity culture, and media frenzy. And through it all, we'll ask the question, was this a harmless joke, a playful tease, or a calculated critique wrapped in humor? The answer, as you'll see, is far from simple. But what makes this moment truly unforgettable isn't just the punchline or the laughter it generated. It's the perfect storm of personalities, timing, and public fascination that turned a live TV joke into a story that everyone, from casual viewers to diehard royal watchers, couldn't stop talking about. The Duchess of Yacht line is more than a joke. It's a cultural touchstone, a mirror reflecting the complexities of public perception, and a spark that ignited debates about humor, respect, and the delicate dance of modern royalty. And as we delve into the details, one thing becomes clear. This story is only getting started. So, hold on to your seats. Because in the next chapter, we're diving headfirst into the world of Mike Tindall, the man behind the microphone, exploring who he is, why his words carry weight, and how a former rugby star became a household name not just for his athletic prowess, but for his unfiltered, unforgettable humor. And trust me, what comes next will set the stage for a story that's equal parts shocking, hilarious, and deeply revealing. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. It was a crisp morning, the kind of day when the studio lights shine brighter and every face seems a little sharper under the glare of television cameras. The audience had been buzzing for hours, chatting in low murmurs, coffee cups clinking, fingers tapping on phones, and eyes darting around, trying to catch glimpses of the personalities scheduled to appear. Live TV, as anyone who's ever been part of it knows, has a pulse all its own. You can feel it in the air, a mixture of anticipation, tension, and excitement. Every word, every movement, every glance can ripple across the nation in real time. And on this particular morning, the ripple was about to become a tidal wave. Mike Tindall, a man whose name resonates in both sporting arenas and royal corridors, arrived in the studio with a casual confidence that only someone utterly comfortable in his own skin could carry. Tall, athletic, and exuding the kind of charm that comes from years of being in the public eye, he seemed entirely at ease as he was greeted by the production team. But make no mistake, Beneath the laid-back exterior was a man acutely aware of the stakes. Live television is unforgiving. One misplaced word or misjudged joke can send a career spiraling. Yet Tindall, who had spent years navigating the pressures of professional rugby and royal events alike, understood that timing, tone, and delivery were everything. As he adjusted his microphone and glanced around at the studio setup, there was a palpable sense of anticipation. The cameras were rolling, the director's voice crackling in his earpiece, cues being shouted, and the audience quieting down. Tindall's presence alone commanded attention, not just because of his athletic fame or his royal connections, but because people instinctively knew that when he spoke, it was going to be memorable. Whether it was a witty remark, a candid observation, or a full-blown roast, Mike had a knack for blending humor with insight, turning everyday observations into moments that could dominate headlines. And then came the moment when the tension broke. A host, brimming with energy, opened the segment with the usual light-hearted banter about recent royal events. "We've seen plenty of drama in the palace lately, haven't we?" the host said, eyes twinkling with mischief. The audience chuckled politely. "But today, we have someone with a particularly sharp perspective, a man who knows the royals from the inside out. Please welcome Mike Tindall." Applause erupted. Some cheers, some whispers, all tinged with curiosity. Everyone wanted to know what he had to say, how candid he would be, and whether he would adhere to the traditional royal-approved commentary or break the mold entirely. Tindall smiled, waved, and leaned into the microphone with that effortless ease that seemed to say, "Relax, I've got this." He started with general anecdotes, stories from his rugby days, and amusing tales of royal gatherings. Laughter began to fill the studio. But Tindall was building something more than just light entertainment. He was setting the stage, testing the audience's readiness, and, perhaps subconsciously, preparing them for the moment that would later become infamous. It's worth pausing here to consider the craft behind what Tindall was doing. Humor, especially in a high-stakes environment, is a delicate balancing act. Too sharp, and it risks offending. Too soft, and it falls flat. Tindall had mastered the art of timing, knowing exactly when to pause, when to let the audience absorb a line, and when to strike again. He played with contrasts. The formal expectations of royalty versus the candid reality of human behavior, the gap between public perception and private quirks, the tension between reverence and relatability. Every anecdote, every chuckle, every raised eyebrow was carefully calibrated to keep the audience engaged, hanging on the next word, ready to react. And then, almost as if on cue, the conversation turned toward Meghan Markle. The mere mention of her name caused a subtle shift in the room. The audience leaned forward, cameras seemed to tilt slightly closer, and even the host's energy heightened. Meghan has always been a figure of intrigue, a lightning rod of fascination and debate. From her Hollywood beginnings to her entrance into the royal family, her every move has been scrutinized, dissected, and broadcast across multiple platforms. The studio, though professional, could not escape the magnetism of her presence in the public consciousness. Tindall paused for just a fraction of a second, scanning the audience, reading the energy in the room. Then, with impeccable timing and a sly grin, he delivered the line, "Ah, Meghan, the Duchess of Yacht." There was a beat of silence, the kind that stretches for a heartbeat but feels like an eternity in a live broadcast. People blinked. Some laughed nervously. Others audibly gasped. And then, as the realization sank in, laughter erupted. Not just polite chuckles, but genuine amusement mixed with disbelief. It was the perfect delivery. Casual, yet loaded with implication. Playful, yet audacious. The audience was stunned, not merely by the words themselves, but by the sheer confidence and boldness of saying it out loud, in front of millions, without hesitation. Tindall had struck a chord that resonated far beyond the studio. Social media platforms immediately lit up with clips and reactions. "Did he really just say that?" typed one viewer. "The Duchess of Yacht? Mike Tindall is savage," exclaimed another. Within minutes, hashtags began trending, memes were created, and commentators scrambled to analyze the implications. But why did this line hit so hard? On the surface, it's a witty play on words, poking fun at Meghan's perceived lifestyle and interests. Yet beneath the humor lies a nuanced critique, a commentary on public perception versus reality, and a subtle nod to the tensions that have long simmered within the royal family. Tindall, by virtue of his position, has insider knowledge and an awareness of both royal protocol and the quirks of individual family members. His joke was not just entertainment. It was a revelation packaged in humor, a statement that made the audience simultaneously laugh and think. Even more fascinating is the context of the live broadcast. Unlike pre-recorded segments, live television allows no room for edits, no second chances. Every word, every inflection, every pause is captured in real time. Tindall's delivery, therefore, was not just comedic, it was a calculated risk. To openly joke about a prominent royal figure in a live setting takes confidence, insight, and an acute understanding of audience psychology. And in that split second, Tindall demonstrated all three. The audience, both in the studio and at home, was caught in the delicate balance between laughter and shock, amusement and awe. As the segment continued, Tindall expanded on his quip, weaving in anecdotes about royal life, humorous observations about etiquette, and stories from family gatherings. Each tale reinforced his reputation as both relatable and irreverent, a man who understands the gravity of royalty but is unafraid to humanize it with humor. Yet despite the light-hearted tone, a question lingered in the minds of viewers. What does this mean for Meghan? For the royal family? For the public's perception of both? Tindall had masterfully opened a door, one that allowed curiosity, speculation, and debate to flood in. And then, as the cameras continued to roll, the host attempted to steer the conversation to other topics, trying to regain control of the segment. But the magic of the moment had already taken hold. The audience's attention was locked, not on sports anecdotes or royal protocols, but on that single line, that perfectly timed joke, and the implications it carried. Social media was buzzing, clips were being shared, and the moment was destined to become a talking point for weeks, if not months. Here's the thing about moments like this: they don't just happen in isolation. They are the culmination of years of observation, experience, and intuition. Tindall, through his experiences as a professional athlete and royal family insider, had developed a keen sense of timing, humor, and audience engagement. He understood not just what to say, but when to say it, and how to say it to maximize impact. And in that live television studio, all of that expertise came together in a single, unforgettable line. But the story doesn't end there. The immediate laughter and applause were only the beginning. Behind the scenes, reactions ranged from delight to concern, from amusement to speculation about repercussions. Royal aides took notice. Media outlets dissected every syllable. Fans debated the joke's meaning. And while the public reveled in the humor, a much larger narrative was quietly unfolding. A story about family dynamics, public perception, and the delicate balance between humor and respect within one of the most scrutinized families in the world. And so, as Mike Tindall left the studio that day, the audience buzzing and the cameras still rolling, one thing was certain: this moment would not be forgotten. The Duchess of Yacht quip had become more than a joke. It had become a cultural event, a flashpoint in the ongoing story of Meghan Markle, and a testament to the power of humor, timing, and audacity. But as the world continued to laugh, share, and debate, little did anyone know that what seemed like a simple, hilarious remark would set off a chain of reactions, revelations, and confrontations that would ripple through the royal family. After leaving the studio, Tindall was quietly aware of the storm his words might stir, not because he was worried, but because he knew the ripples of a live comment could travel far beyond the cameras. In a world obsessed with royalty, where every sentence is parsed, every gesture analyzed, and every joke dissected, one misstep could ignite headlines faster than a wildfire. But Tindall had always thrived under pressure. This wasn't his first brush with the media, far from it. Backstage, producers whispered among themselves, some laughing, others scribbling notes, recognizing that this segment would likely become a defining moment of the morning broadcast. A few nervous assistants approached Tindall, offering a mix of congratulations and gentle warnings. "You know they're going to run this clip all over the internet," one said with a chuckle. "Yeah, I know," Tindall replied, his grin betraying both amusement and anticipation. "Let them run with it." Meanwhile, in households across the country, viewers were replaying the moment in their heads. On social media, Reactions ranged from sheer delight to incredulous shock. "Mike Tindall just destroyed Meghan on live TV," one tweet screamed. "The Duchess of Yacht. Did he really just say that?" typed another, followed by a string of laughing emojis. Clips began circulating instantly, some polished with slow-motion highlights of Tindall's facial expression, others captioned with dramatic commentary, like "Royal Roast Alert." And as the segment concluded, with Tindall waving to the audience and the host trying to regain control, the aftershocks were palpable. Clips of the moment had already been shared thousands of times. Memes proliferated, commentary pieces were drafted, and viewers everywhere were debating the meaning and implications of that single line. The studio had witnessed not just a comedic remark, but a moment that had captured the collective imagination of a nation. But even as the audience laughed, debated, and shared, a deeper question began to form in the minds of viewers. What does this really mean for Meghan Markle? For the royal family? For the ongoing narratives that swirl around privilege, perception, and public scrutiny? Tindall had opened a door, teased a truth, and left the public clamoring for more. The story was far from over. And here's where the tension truly begins. The cliffhanger that ensures viewers will not look away. Because what the public didn't yet know, what the cameras didn't capture, was that Tindall's remark was only the opening salvo. Behind the smiles and laughter, there were conversations, reactions, and repercussions that would ripple through the royal family, the media, and social platforms for weeks to come. The moment of humor was just the spark. The real story, with its twists, revelations, and controversies, was only beginning to ignite. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. By the time the sun rose the next morning, the Tindall moment had transformed into a digital wildfire. Social media feeds were ablaze, with hashtags trending within minutes. Hashtag Duchess of Yacht, hashtag Mike Tindall Roast, hashtag Royal Burn. For casual viewers, it was hilarious. For diehard royal fans, it was shocking. And for analysts and tabloids, it was a gift. A perfect storm of virality, controversy, and curiosity, all wrapped into one perfectly timed live television quip. The reactions came in waves. First, the laughter, memes featuring Tindall's wry smirk paired with imagined captions of Meghan in extravagant yacht scenarios flooded Twitter and Instagram. TikTok creators produced 15-second skits reenacting the moment, some with hilarious reenactments, others with slow-motion dramatic zoom-ins on Tindall's expression. The creativity was endless. But beneath the humor, there was intrigue. People weren't just laughing, they were asking questions. What prompted Tindall to say this? Was there some inside story the public didn't know? Was this a subtle jab at Meghan's high-profile lifestyle? The curiosity gap was irresistible. Within hours, news outlets picked up the story. Headlines ranged from cheeky to sensational. Mike Tindall calls Meghan Markle the Duchess of Yacht. Royal fans stunned. Royal roast. Tindall's live TV quip sparks internet frenzy. From humor to controversy. Did Mike Tindall just expose Meghan Markle's hidden side? Analysts dissected the nuance of Tindall's remark, debating whether it was harmless fun or an insider dig. Every article referenced the same viral clip, looping back to the moment, ensuring that readers couldn't escape the replay of that iconic line. Fans reacted in predictable and unpredictable ways. Some defended Meghan, writing heartfelt posts about the pressures of royal life and criticizing what they perceived as a personal attack. Others laughed along, framing it as a necessary humanization of the royals, proof that even the most curated lives have room for ridicule. A smaller faction, more cynical, wondered if Tindall's remark hinted at deeper tensions within the royal circle, speculating about private disagreements, unspoken rivalries, and long-standing grievances. In all cases, engagement skyrocketed. Comments, shares, and likes multiplied exponentially, pushing the video into trending algorithms worldwide. But the story didn't end there. In the background, the ripple effects of the moment began to shape the conversation in unexpected ways. Pundits and commentators, eager for clicks and relevance, started digging into past events, interviews, and public appearances of Meghan Markle. Clips of her speaking at charity events, attending film premieres, or navigating high society gatherings were suddenly framed under the lens of Tindall's joke. Analysts scrutinized her body language, wardrobe, and public interactions, interpreting them through the prism of the Duchess of Yacht label. Every action, no matter how minor, became fodder for debate and speculation. Social media amplified every reaction. Influencers posted reaction videos, often dramatically replaying the clip with commentary that ranged from comedic exaggeration to faux outrage. Memes became a language of their own. One particularly viral example showed Meghan on a luxury yacht, sipping champagne, with Tindall's face photoshopped into the background, laughing knowingly. Engagement numbers were staggering, with millions of impressions across multiple platforms. Viewers weren't just consuming content. They were participating, sharing their interpretations, debating the implications, and speculating about what this might mean for the royal family dynamic. Meanwhile, traditional media struggled to keep up. Morning shows, radio segments, and online news sites were scrambling to analyze the fallout. Pundits debated, was this a sign of a brewing feud? Or was it simply playful banter amplified out of proportion? Some journalists suggested that Tindall, known for his candid humor and off-the-cuff remarks, was deliberately crafting a moment designed to trend. Others argued that this was just one man being himself, with no hidden agenda. The ambiguity fueled the public's fascination. Every tweet, post, and comment was another layer in an ever-growing story, a narrative evolving in real time before anyone could fully comprehend it. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect was the international reaction. Across Europe, North America, and even parts of Asia, viewers were captivated. In some regions, fans speculated about the cultural implications. Was Tindall's humor a reflection of British irreverence, or did it reveal something about the global perception of Meghan Markle? In celebrity circles, gossip columns buzzed with conjecture. Invitations to comment on radio shows, podcasts, and late-night talk shows surged. Media outlets were essentially forced to ask themselves, how do you cover a moment that is equal parts comedy, social commentary, and royal intrigue? And as the digital storm intensified, another layer began to form. Subtle shifts within the royal family's public messaging. Insiders, speaking anonymously to journalists, hinted at internal discussions about media strategy, public perception, and damage control. There were meetings in offices, private calls, and cautious conversations about how best to respond, if at all. Should they ignore the joke to avoid amplifying it? Or should they lean into it, using humor to soften the narrative? The tension between reacting and remaining aloof created a suspenseful undertone that captivated audiences. Yet amid all this, the audience's attention was unwavering. People didn't just want to laugh. They wanted context, meaning, and the untold story behind Tindall's remark. Questions proliferated. Did this reveal private opinions? Was it a critique masked as humor? How did Meghan herself react in private? Each unanswered question acted as a hook, compelling viewers to stay engaged, revisit the clip, and speculate endlessly. This is the essence of viral content. The mix of entertainment, curiosity, and suspense that keeps an audience locked in for hours. And as the day wore on, the impact of Tindall's comment reached its peak. Talk shows debated it, late-night hosts parroted it, and social media threads stretched on endlessly. Even casual viewers who had no previous interest in royal affairs were swept into the narrative, fascinated by the combination of humor, audacity, and unexpected insight. The clip became more than just a funny moment. It was a cultural event, a topic of conversation that transcended screens, living rooms, and social media feeds. But even as millions laughed, debated, and shared, a subtle undercurrent of tension persisted. Because while the public was caught up in the entertainment, the implications were quietly unfolding elsewhere. Private reactions, strategic decisions, and subtle ripples within the royal inner circle hinted that the story was far from over. The viral moment was just the beginning. A spark that would ignite further revelations, unexpected confrontations, and moments that would challenge perceptions, loyalties, and narratives. And as night fell, one lingering question dominated the collective imagination. What would happen next, when the consequences of this seemingly playful remark began to manifest behind closed doors? But what came next would be even more shocking, and no one was prepared for the chain reaction that was about to unfold. Behind the polished smiles and public appearances, Meghan Markle's world operates under an intense microscope. Every word, every gesture, and every public statement is weighed, analyzed, and recorded. So when news of Mike Tindall's Duchess of Yacht comment broke, it didn't just reach the public. It ricocheted straight into Meghan's inner circle. Advisors, friends, family members, and PR strategists were instantly in overdrive, dissecting the moment and its potential repercussions. The first reactions were subtle, almost imperceptible to outsiders. Meghan's personal assistant reportedly sent a quick message across the team. "We need to assess the narrative and prepare a response if necessary." The tone was calm but urgent. The inner circle understood that even a joke, when amplified by social media, could evolve into a media storm capable of defining public perception. And in the world Meghan inhabits, perception is reality. One of the first people to respond was a senior communications advisor, someone who had worked closely with Meghan during high-profile events and charitable campaigns. The advisor called an emergency virtual meeting, gathering key figures from PR, social media management, and media monitoring. Within minutes, screens were filled with trending charts, screenshots, and viral clips. Analysts were already dissecting every nuance. Tindall's tone, the timing of the remark, audience reactions, and the potential interpretations that could ripple across tabloids and news sites. Meanwhile, Meghan herself was said to have been reviewing the clip in private, accompanied by a close confidant. Observers who would later speak anonymously described a mixture of surprise, amusement, and subtle frustration. Meghan is known for her composed public demeanor, but those who know her closely understand that she is deeply aware of how every public interaction, whether it involves her directly or tangentially, can shape her reputation. Tindall's quip, while humorous to the outside world, had the potential to complicate the carefully curated image she had built over years of public life. Family members also weighed in, though discreetly. Reports suggested that some relatives laughed at the audacity, understanding that humor often thrives at the intersection of truth and exaggeration. Others, however, expressed concern about the public's perception, worried that the joke could be interpreted as undermining Meghan's status or character. This internal dichotomy between amusement and apprehension created a charged atmosphere, the kind that only grows more intense when everyone involved is acutely aware of public scrutiny. In the world of royal communications, timing is everything. Tindall's remark had gone viral almost instantly, leaving Meghan's team with limited options. Ignore it and risk letting the narrative spiral uncontrolled. Address it and risk drawing further attention to a comment that might have otherwise faded into the daily chatter of social media. Every decision had consequences, and every reaction could be dissected by analysts, journalists, and millions of online viewers. Private discussions reportedly extended late into the evening. Advisors debated possible angles, a public statement, a subtle social media post, or perhaps no response at all. Each option had merits and drawbacks. A statement could clarify intentions and demonstrate composure, but it might also magnify the attention on Tindall's comment. Silence could signal strength and indifference, yet it could be perceived as weakness or vulnerability. At the same time, Meghan's inner circle began strategizing about the narrative's broader context. Was Tindall's remark a simple joke, or did it hint at underlying tensions within the royal family? Could it be leveraged to reinforce Meghan's narrative about the challenges of public life, or would it only invite more scrutiny and speculation? These were the questions circulating in quiet, tense rooms, far from the bright lights and viral memes that the public was focused on. Friends close to Meghan reportedly noted that while she is typically unflappable, moments like these require emotional calibration. Laughter in the wrong context can feel like mockery. Jokes that are misunderstood can feel like subtle attacks. Meghan, according to insiders, was carefully weighing her reactions, not out of vanity or ego, but because she understood that every public perception influences both her personal brand and her ability to champion causes she cares about. Media consultants were simultaneously mapping the ripple effect. Analysts were tracking sentiment across platforms, noting where humor turned into criticism and where admiration remained steadfast. They identified key influencers, celebrities, and public figures who could shape the conversation, anticipating whether support or backlash might dominate the narrative in the coming days. Social media trends were monitored in real time, hashtags tracked, and potential interview opportunities evaluated, all in preparation for what could be a long, drawn-out conversation about a moment that, in isolation, seemed trivial, but in context, carried enormous weight. Even Meghan's closest friends were divided in their perspectives. Some encouraged her to simply laugh along with the public, framing Tindall's quip as playful banter in line with British humor. Others urged caution, reminding her that perception in the digital age can twist even the lightest of comments into a reputational challenge. This division underscored a key tension. In a world where every public figure's image is constructed as much by reaction as by action, humor can be both a weapon and a shield. As the evening wore on, more concrete plans began to form. Social media messaging was crafted with precision, designed to acknowledge engagement without escalating the conversation unnecessarily. Private channels with key media outlets were activated to provide context if asked. Strategic talking points were rehearsed for potential interviews or appearances. Every detail, from word choice to timing, was considered with painstaking care. Yet, even as Meghan's team worked behind the scenes, the public narrative continued to evolve independently. Analysts noted a fascinating phenomenon. The joke had taken on a life of its own. While Tindall's original comment was playful, the audience had infused it with layers of interpretation, speculation, and emotional investment. Some viewers celebrated it as a moment of levity, while others read into it critiques, judgments, and hidden truths about royal life. The unpredictability of public reaction added another layer of tension, an uncontrollable element that Meghan and her advisors had to contend with in real time. Amid this carefully orchestrated response, a deeper emotional undercurrent emerged. For Meghan, the incident wasn't just about Tindall's words. It was about the constant balancing act of public life, where humor can be weaponized, perception is a currency, and even the smallest misstep can be amplified into a headline. The Duchess of Yacht moment became a mirror, reflecting both the absurdity and the pressure of living in the public eye. Friends later described Meghan as contemplative, aware that while the joke was amusing, it was also a reminder of the fine line she constantly walks between personal authenticity and public expectation. And as the night stretched on, one lingering question hovered over the inner circle. How would Meghan respond when the story took its next turn? Because while the initial wave of reactions could be managed, there were always unforeseen consequences in the world of viral content. What seemed like harmless humor in the moment could morph into controversy, debate, or even conflict. But what happened next inside Meghan Markle's inner circle would shock everyone, and the ripple effects would extend far beyond social media, threatening to redefine relationships, reputations, and alliances in ways no one expected. By the next morning, the Tindall remark had leapt from social media feeds to newsrooms around the globe. Royal commentators, pundits, and analysts woke to a new headline that they simply couldn't ignore. Mike Tindall hilariously destroys Meghan Markle on live TV. Audience stunned. Mike Tindall calls Meghan Markle the Duchess of Yacht. For some, it was an irresistible talking point. For others, it was a professional challenge. How do you analyze a moment that's equal parts humor, controversy, and viral spectacle? Television studios scrambled to secure commentators with both credibility and charisma. Former royal aides, media experts, and even cultural sociologists were called in to weigh the implications. On live TV, one commentator, sipping coffee with a furrowed brow, summarized the moment in words that would soon become iconic. It's a joke, yes, but it's also a statement. And in the world of royals, every statement is scrutinized. The analysis began with the tone and context of Tindall's delivery. Experts dissected his body language. The smirk, the pause before the punchline, the subtle tilt of the head. Some argued that the humor was casual, a reflection of Tindall's known playful personality. Others contended that there was a layer of subtext, a subtle commentary on the perceived extravagance of Meghan's lifestyle. The public loved the spectacle, but the analysts wanted depth, context, and connections. Meanwhile, print media didn't lag behind. Newspapers and online outlets published op-eds exploring the broader cultural implications. One headline read, "From royal protocol to yacht humor, how a simple joke became a global conversation." Columnists debated, was this a harmless quip or a reflection of internal tensions within the royal family? Could Tindall's humor signal subtle criticisms that the public would decode as insider knowledge? Each piece added complexity to the evolving narrative, feeding the curiosity of audiences already captivated by the clip. Podcast hosts joined the fray. Episodes dissecting the moment popped up across platforms within hours. Hosts replayed the clip in slow motion, speculating about everything from audience reactions to Meghan's likely private response. One podcast guest, a former palace aide, hinted at long-standing tensions between certain members of the royal family and Meghan, describing the joke as a window into a world the public rarely sees. The combination of humor, conjecture, and insider insight made these discussions irresistible to listeners, ensuring high retention and repeat engagement. Social media analysts provided another layer of interpretation. They highlighted patterns of audience engagement, spikes in laughter reactions on Facebook, increased shares on Twitter, and an explosion of memes on Instagram and TikTok. Influencers were not just sharing clips. They were framing them, offering commentary, and creating micro-narratives that played with Tindall's joke in imaginative ways. Every new post, every like, every retweet became a node in a viral feedback loop, ensuring the joke's longevity and cultural penetration. Meanwhile, television panels debated whether Tindall's humor represented a broader cultural trend. Was this the British sense of irreverence at work, or a reflection of the evolving role of the royals in modern society? Some argued that humor is a vital tool for relatability, while others insisted that even light-hearted jabs could carry serious consequences in the tightly controlled royal ecosystem. Analysts dissected past incidents, comparing Tindall's quip to other moments where royals had been the subject of public commentary, drawing parallels and distinctions with painstaking attention to detail. Radio shows added to the spectacle. Call-in segments allowed listeners to express opinions, ranging from enthusiastic laughter to thoughtful critique. Many callers debated the propriety of Tindall's words, while others focused on Meghan herself, speculating about how the Duchess might respond in interviews, social media posts, or public appearances. Hosts cleverly amplified tension, pausing between caller segments to replay the iconic line, ensuring listeners stayed engaged and emotionally invested. In the digital sphere, commentary extended beyond professional analysts. Amateur bloggers, meme creators, and YouTube personalities dissected the clip frame by frame. Some created humorous edits, placing Tindall in absurd scenarios with Meghan aboard imaginary yachts. Others crafted detailed timelines, tracing Tindall's career, previous interviews, and public persona, suggesting that the comment was more calculated than spontaneous. The diversity of voices, professional, semi-professional, and purely creative, ensured that audiences could find endless angles to explore, maintaining engagement for hours. But the intrigue didn't stop at humor. Analysts speculated about potential ripples inside the palace. Was Tindall's comment a friendly nudge or a subtle critique? Did it reflect private frustrations, casual observations, or something more strategic? Every hypothesis sparked further conversation, prompting more clips, more debates, and more social media reactions. The joke became a lens through which the public and pundits alike could examine broader questions about hierarchy, privilege, and interpersonal dynamics within the royal family. Even the late-night talk shows seized on the moment. Comedians parroted the clip with dramatic flair, exaggerating gestures and voice inflections for comedic effect. Satirical sketches imagined Meghan aboard an opulent yacht, champagne glass in hand, while Tindall narrates with dry wit. These sketches didn't just entertain. They amplified the meme culture, generating additional clicks, shares, and engagement. Each iteration of the joke reinforced its status as a cultural touchpoint. International audiences were equally captivated. British commentators offered nuanced takes steeped in tradition, while American media focused on celebrity dynamics and lifestyle implications. Social media feeds from across the globe highlighted how humor transcended borders, yet interpretations varied based on cultural context. In some regions, the jest was purely comedic. In others, it was a point of discussion about etiquette, privilege, and public image. This international lens elevated the conversation from a local viral clip to a global cultural event. Behind the scenes, commentators speculated about Meghan's likely strategy. Would she respond publicly, subtly, or not at all? Analysts compared this to past instances where royals faced public ridicule, noting patterns of silence, controlled messaging, or strategic counterpoints. Each speculation added a layer of suspense, ensuring that audiences remained invested, hungry for updates and new angles to the story. By the end of the day, the commentators had succeeded in creating a multi-layered narrative that extended far beyond the initial joke. What began as a light-hearted quip had evolved into a complex discussion spanning humor, culture, media strategy, and royal dynamics. Audiences were not only entertained, they were engaged, curious, and emotionally invested. The clip's virality became a case study in modern media ecosystems, how a single moment could spark global conversation, influence public perception, and sustain attention for days. Yet, amid all the analysis, one question remained unanswered. How would Meghan herself navigate the growing storm of commentary, speculation, and scrutiny? Every joke amplified, every meme created, and every pundit prediction only increased the stakes. The story was no longer just about Tindall's humor. It was about the tension between public perception, private life, and the inevitable consequences that follow a viral moment of audacious wit. And as the sun set, behind closed doors, preparations were underway that would soon bring the next twist, a response that no commentator, pundit, or social media analyst saw coming. While the public and media were abuzz with laughter, speculation, and analysis, inside the royal family, the Tindall remarks sparked a flurry of private conversations. In the elegant corridors of Buckingham Palace and the quieter corners of other royal residences, whispers carried a mixture of amusement, concern, and strategic calculation. Every word, every reaction, was analyzed, not just for content, but for subtext. The joke was harmless on the surface, but in a family whose lives are perpetually under scrutiny, even humor can carry weighty implications. King Charles was reportedly among the first to react privately. Known for his measured temperament, he was said to have smiled quietly at the clip before placing it aside for later discussion. Yet advisors noted a subtle furrow in his brow, a sign that while outwardly unbothered, he was aware of the ripple effects this could trigger across the media and the family. After all, a joke at Meghan's expense, however playful, had the potential to spark debates about fairness, public perception, and the family's internal dynamics. Prince William's reaction was more layered. Close friends later described him as conflicted, partially amused by Tindall's audacity, but also acutely aware of the spotlight the comment would place on Meghan, Harry, and their public image. He reportedly remarked in a private conversation, "Mike doesn't hold back, does he?" highlighting both the humor and the potential risk. Analysts watching the family dynamics would later interpret this as a subtle reminder that, even within the palace, humor could influence alliances and perceptions. Conversations weren't limited to the senior royals. Younger family members, including Princess Charlotte and Prince George, were shielded from the media storm, but their parents, William and Kate, discussed how public moments like these could influence the wider narrative. The balance between family protection, public engagement, and media strategy became a recurring theme, illustrating the constant negotiation between personal life and public persona. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry's inner circle maintained constant communication with them. Text messages, phone calls, and briefings flowed steadily, sharing updates from media outlets, social media platforms, and royal advisors. The couple, accustomed to both scrutiny and praise, weighed each piece of information with care. For Meghan, in particular, the Tindall comment served as a reminder of the delicate dance she performs every day, balancing authenticity with public expectation, humor with dignity, and personal agency with the relentless gaze of the press. Back in Buckingham Palace, private discussions explored the broader implications of Tindall's joke. Advisors debated potential messaging strategies, not necessarily to respond publicly, but to ensure the family maintained a consistent narrative. Some argued for silence, reasoning that overreaction could lend undue significance to a joke. Others pushed for subtle reinforcement of family cohesion, ensuring that the public perceived the royals as unified, composed, and above petty squabbles. These conversations revealed the intricate layers of communication required within the monarchy, where even an offhand comment can become a strategic challenge. The dynamics weren't purely professional. Emotional undertones played a significant role. Family members were aware that humor at Meghan's expense could be interpreted in multiple ways: playful ribbing, critique, or even subtle tension. While the remark was public, its effects were intimate, influencing trust, relationships, and perceptions within the family. Some senior royals reportedly laughed quietly at the joke, recognizing its harmless intent, while others expressed concern about how it might reflect on their own positions and the family's image as a whole. The discussions extended to lifestyle implications. Meghan's public image, shaped over years of meticulous effort, could be impacted by a single quip. Advisors pondered whether this moment might influence public perception of Meghan's choices, from fashion to charity work to personal statements. In a world where narratives shift quickly, the potential for misinterpretation was high. Every laugh, every comment, and every retweet could subtly influence public sentiment, making careful monitoring essential. Private channels also buzzed with speculation about Mike Tindall himself. Was he intentionally provocative, or simply delivering a spontaneous jest? Some advisors argued that Tindall's established reputation for humor suggested the latter, yet in a family attuned to nuance, intent mattered less than impact. Even an innocent remark could trigger consequences if the audience interpreted it as commentary on Meghan's character or the broader family dynamics. Interestingly, some members of the family reportedly reached out to Tindall privately. These conversations, conducted with humor and tact, aimed to understand the context, gauge intent, and ensure no misunderstanding could escalate into discord. Tindall, known for his candid and playful personality, reportedly reassured those concerned, emphasizing the comedic nature of his comment and the absence of any personal critique. His straightforward approach helped diffuse tension internally, even as the public conversation continued to grow. Yet despite these efforts, the royal family's reactions were not uniform. Differences in temperament, perception, and priorities led to varied responses. Some laughed openly, sharing subtle amusement with close confidants. Others remained serious, focused on strategy, optics, and messaging. These divergent reactions highlighted the delicate balancing act required to manage both personal feelings and public responsibilities. Within the palace, humor, perception, and strategy often intersect in ways that are invisible to the public eye, but critically important behind closed doors. By the evening, it became clear that this was not a fleeting moment. Advisors compiled reports detailing media coverage, social media trends, and public sentiment. The palace communications team assessed whether any official response was necessary, weighing every potential move with meticulous care. Their goal was not to control humor, but to ensure that the family narrative remained coherent, composed, and strategically sound. And amid all these private deliberations, one unexpected development occurred. A senior family member, who had previously remained on the periphery of Meghan-related conversations, decided to intervene. Their private remarks, which were later leaked to the press, hinted at growing curiosity, concern, and even intrigue about Tindall's jest. This intervention, subtle but deliberate, would set in motion a chain of events that no one, inside or outside the palace, anticipated. The palace, with its centuries of tradition and protocol, had never faced a situation quite like this. A joke, light-hearted yet pointed, had ignited discussions spanning humor, perception, strategy, and family dynamics. Everyone involved understood that, in the modern era, even the most private conversations could find their way into public consciousness, with implications that were impossible to fully predict. And just when the family believed the matter might settle quietly, a new piece of information emerged, a private recording from the studio audience that captured reactions none of the royals or advisors had anticipated. The content of that recording would send shockwaves through the palace, shifting alliances, stirring emotions, and setting the stage for a dramatic twist that no one saw coming. The moment Tindall uttered the words, Duchess of Yacht, the live studio audience erupted. Laughter, gasps, and even a few audible snorts filled the room, creating a soundscape that broadcast producers knew would be impossible to edit out. Cameras panned to capture the mixture of surprise, amusement, and sheer disbelief on the faces of attendees. Some held their hands to their mouths, as if afraid the moment might vanish before anyone else could witness it. Others exchanged knowing glances, as if they shared a secret joke that only the room understood. This reaction, captured on multiple cameras, became an instant treasure trove for media outlets. Within minutes, the clip began circulating on social media, amplified by viewers eager to replay the audience's genuine, unfiltered response. Analysts quickly noted that the audience reaction added a layer of authenticity to the moment. It wasn't just Tindall delivering a punchline. It was a shared human experience, the kind that makes viral content irresistible. Among the attendees, a few faces stood out. A well-dressed couple, sitting near the front, were caught mid-laughter, their eyes sparkling with incredulity. A younger man, who appeared to be recording the segment on his phone, leaned forward, clearly aware that he was witnessing something unique. Even the studio staff couldn't help but chuckle, exchanging amused glances over their monitors. It was, in every sense, a collective moment of astonishment that transcended age, background, and expectation. But as laughter echoed through the studio, subtle expressions of curiosity and tension emerged. Some audience members weren't just amused, they were processing the implications. One woman, her brow furrowed slightly, whispered to her neighbor, What did he mean by that?" Her question was emblematic of the dual reaction that would propel the clip into global conversation. Humor mixed with intrigue. What was a simple joke to some became a point of speculation for others. The producer's booth was a flurry of activity. Staff replayed the segment, discussing whether to air it immediately or hold for editing. Each replay revealed new nuances. The timing of Tindall's pause, the way he emphasized certain words, even the subtle eye roll that punctuated the punchline. Every detail contributed to the audience's perception and, by extension, the public's appetite for the clip once it went viral. Outside the studio, social media users were already dissecting the video. Hashtags began trending within minutes. Hashtag Duchess of Yacht, hashtag Mike Tindall joke, and hashtag Royal Comedy exploded across Twitter. On Instagram, short clips of audience reactions circulated alongside memes and reaction videos. TikTok creators began reenacting the scene, some exaggerating the audience's gasps and laughter, others placing Tindall in absurdly luxurious yacht scenarios. Within hours, the joke had become a cultural event, transcending its original broadcast. For the studio audience themselves, the moment didn't end with the taping. Many attendees shared their experience online, posting first-hand accounts of the laughter, gasps, and stunned silence that punctuated Tindall's delivery. Their narratives added depth and color to the clip, making viewers at home feel as if they were part of the live experience. The emotional resonance of the audience's reactions, genuine surprise mixed with mirth, enhanced the clip's shareability and longevity. Yet even amid the humor, there were subtle tensions. A few audience members reportedly felt caught off guard by the comment's edge. Was it playful teasing or a pointed critique? Some whispered among themselves, debating whether the remark overstepped boundaries or simply reflected Tindall's signature wit. These private discussions, though muted in the moment, would later surface in interviews and social media posts, contributing to the layered narrative surrounding the incident. Television commentators quickly seized on these reactions. Analysts noted that audience laughter often serves as a social cue, guiding viewers at home on how to interpret a moment. The genuine astonishment captured on camera amplified the joke's impact, making it both relatable and memorable. Some experts speculated that the audience's reaction would play a critical role in how Meghan and her team chose to respond, or whether they would respond at all. The laughter was not just entertainment, it was data, insight, and, in some ways, strategy. Inside the studio, whispers of backstage commentary began to circulate. Crew members noted that Tindall's timing was impeccable, his ability to gauge audience energy almost instinctual. Producers speculated that this was a masterclass in comedic delivery, though one loaded with unintended consequences. Even seasoned television professionals acknowledged that moments like this, where humor, timing, and public perception intersect, rarely unfold so perfectly in real time. Meanwhile, the global audience watching from home had a similar yet distinct reaction. For many, the combination of Tindall's delivery and the studio's genuine response created a sense of immediacy. It felt unscripted, real, and, most importantly, unrepeatable. Every laugh, gasp, and eye roll was a signal that something significant was unfolding, a shared cultural moment that people wanted to witness, analyze, and discuss. Critics, too, weighed in. Some praised Tindall's humor, emphasizing its charm and relatability. Others questioned whether a joke at Meghan's expense was appropriate, noting that public commentary on her personal choices could perpetuate scrutiny and criticism. The polarized reactions underscored a critical aspect of virality. Moments that are emotionally charged, ambiguous, or layered tend to capture attention far more effectively than neutral or purely comedic content. Adding another layer of intrigue, a few audience members reportedly captured private conversations and reactions among themselves. Their recordings, later leaked online, offered additional context, spontaneous laughter, whispered speculations, and private commentary on Meghan's perceived response. These behind-the-scenes reactions became fodder for further analysis, reinforcing the narrative that Tindall's joke was more than just a fleeting moment. It was a spark that ignited a chain reaction of media, social, and cultural engagement. The impact was immediate. Within hours of the broadcast, media outlets worldwide were publishing articles analyzing both the joke and the audience's reaction. Headlines ranged from celebratory, "Mike Tindall brings the house down with royal humor," to speculative, "Did Tindall's joke reveal tensions inside the palace?"